Good evening, everybody. Monday Morning Quarterback, episode 23. We're going to talk about torsion bars again. Last week, you probably think we covered everything there was to cover about torsion bars, but after we got off the air, I thought of a couple things that I felt were important, so we're going to talk about a little bit more about torsion bars today. So last week was sprint week. Had a good week. Tyler Courtney won a couple features in the Clausen Marshall car, and a lot of our other customers had really good runs. Man, the USAC National Sprint Car Series is as competitive as I've ever seen it. Bunch of guys that can win on any given night, and the racing was great all week. So dodged rain most of the week, and was happy to get all the races in. So this week I'm off to Knoxville Friday for the 360 Nationals and the Capitani, and then I'll be trading off with Jake. He's going to the Ironman, and then coming into Knoxville for the 410 Nationals to help Hunter Schoenberg, and then be there to help our customers as well. And then I'm heading to Texas next week to help some micro customers. Had a couple now 600 races, so a lot going on. But wanted to recognize a couple guys that have had amazing years to date, and that's young Freddie Rowland from Kansas. He swept the non-wing portion, well, I guess the non-wing nationals at Port City, the junior sprint portion, and I believe that's win 13 and 14 on the year for that young driver. And then our old buddy Kevin Ramey out of Texas, he got wins 14 and 15 on the year. So absolutely astounding years for those two guys. So congratulations to those guys. Big win for us last night. Sammy Swindell won the All-Star race, driving for a longtime customer of ours, Brandon Thone. Brandon gets a lot of help from Davey Whitworth, who's been a big supporter of CSI through the years, dating back to his time crew chiefing the Dan Motter car that Joey Saldana drove. So cool for those guys to get a win using our new wing package and our progressive bump kit. We've been working really hard on our wing sprint car stuff, and it's good to get some wins, and we just got to get it out there more and more people using it. I feel like we have a great product for the wing sprint car stuff. So, and cool to see Sammy using my shocks. I worked for Sammy 17 or 18 years ago on the World of Outlaw Tour, so cool to see him using our stuff in Brandon Thone's car, and hopefully they'll have a successful week next week at the 410 Nationals. So for those of you tuned in, we're going to talk about torsion bars. And last week we talked about the difference between solid and hollow bars, what the effective length was, the effects of flopping your torsion bar corner to corner, kind of the longevity of your bar. But one thing we didn't really talk about is the effective spring rate of your torsion bar, and why that's important to know. So if you have a 1025 torsion bar, it has a specific rate, but the effective rate is what's actually applied to the wheel, or your wheel load, and that's mostly affected by the length of your torsion bar, or torsion arm, I'm sorry. However, it is also affected by the rigidity of your torsion arm. So I grabbed this off our cabinet where we do bar dynoing, and when we first got that bar dyno, gosh, 7 or 8 years ago, one of the cooler projects we did was really running through a number of different torsion arms to see what the effective spring rate change was just by changing arms. So same length arm, just different manufacturers. So they were definitely different thicknesses, different pocketing profiles, and we learned a lot. We actually dynoed the bars with a dial indicator on the arm so we could see exactly where the arm was deflecting, and we learned a lot of neat stuff there. At that time, Doug Wolfgang's son Robbie was running and using our shocks, and so Doug was making some tubular arms, some steel tubular arms, and he thought for sure they were going to be stiffer than the aluminum arms like I'm holding right here. And what we actually found, until Doug made one out of 120 wall, they were actually softer and deflected more. But once he made one out of 120 wall, then that tubular arm was actually stiffer than the aluminum. So what's the difference if the arm's deflecting? You got a soft arm, a stiff arm. Well, really, it's just all your effective spring rate. But the thing to know is, if you have an arm, so like this arm here, this is an old arm. I don't even know that they still sell them pocketed all the way through. But this is a really soft arm. It's lightened a lot. And the biggest thing is it's pocketed way back here by the broach. So when we dyno a torsion bar on our machine using an arm like that, all the deflection happens right back here where the torsion bar goes through the broach. So if it's pocketed back here, you'll get a lot of twisting and deflection in the arm. And what happens when that occurs is you're losing spring rate, and you're not getting it where you want to the wheel. So for example, if you use the calculator on how to get an effective spring rate, and you put in a 1025 bar with this effective rate and a 14-inch arm, look at the chart, your 265 pounds roughly is what should be applied. However, if the arm twists or deflects and it's not holding that whole rate of that torsion bar, now you might be 245 or 230. If you go from one car to another and all of a sudden now you have an arm that's not pocketed back here, you notice a lot of the new ones are for one, thicker, but most of them are pocketed out near the end where the rod end would go in, and now that arm's stiffer, you're running the same torsion bar you've always ran, the car's using the same length arms, doesn't feel the same. Your effective spring rate is stiffer because the arm is stiffer and it's not deflecting as much. I don't know if there's an advantage to running a soft arm or a stiff arm. What I do know is you need to know what you have, and if you're going from car to car, or you trash a set of rear arms and you put a different brand on, you might be a lot different. And the difference is substantial. We're talking a whole bar size difference from an arm like this to like a King makes a really thick arm that's pocketed out on the end. That's one manufacturer that came to the top of my head. That's going to be almost a full bar size different in effective spring rate because that arm is very rigid. The other thing, when you get to changing bars from say a 1025 to a 1050, that stiff bar, or excuse me, stiff arm is going to have a much greater effect with that change than this soft arm. Because what happens is when you put that stiffer bar in there, this soft arm is just going to deflect more. So yeah, your spring rate went up a little, your effective spring rate did go up a little, but a lot of it was just lost in the deflection of the arm. We had a customer 5 or 6 years ago that was running a flop tube car, really long right rear arm, and we were trying to determine exactly with that length of arm and the arm he had, what was it equivalent to what he was running before. And what we realized is anything above a 1050 bar, we weren't getting hardly any effective spring rate change. Put a 1065 in, arm just deflected more. Put an 1100 in, which we had to knock the bushing out to do, the arm just twisted more. There was no more effective spring rate at the wheel. It just was twisting the arm more and more. So we reached kind of the yield point of that arm. So we had to put a really stiff arm on that car to get the spring rate we wanted. So really important to know with your torsion arm what you got, and if you trash a set of rear arms that you're putting the same thing back on, or if you can't put the same thing back on, at least know whether you're putting something softer or stiffer on. So we have the ability to dyno the bar with your arm and give you that spring rate if that's something you want to do. But the biggest thing we've learned is anything, again, to circle back, anything that's pocketed back here by the broach is going to be pretty soft and you'll get a lot of deflection. And it doesn't even have to be a through pocket like that. It can just be ball milled out and lightened, but if it's back here by the broach, you're going to get a lot of deflection. So you see most of the new ones are just pocketed out here. John, you can bring your arm in, and that way you'll know the effective spring rate if that's what you're wanting to do. So typically on our dyno, we dyno everything with a 12-inch steel arm And that's just for consistency. So every bar we dyno is with that 12-inch steel arm on the sprint car side, and we know what we're looking for, you know, as consistency from manufacturer to the next. And if we're dynoing a batch of 1025 bars, that they're all falling in the window they should. A 10 or 12-inch steel arm has like 0 deflection, so we're getting the true reading on the torsion bar. But if you're wanting to know effective spring rate and what's getting applied to the wheel, dynoing it with your arm is rather important. So definitely want to circle back and kind of give you guys a little bit more information with that, so you have an idea of some of the other effects that go into the spring rate on your car other than just the diameter of your torsion bar. Anybody that's tuned in have any questions on that or anything we covered last week regarding torsion bars, or any other question you have about your race program? Excited to get to Knoxville this week. We got a lot of 360 customers there running. Going to bring some new products that we've been working on. I'll have some pressure decals with me and different things we can try. Again, I'm going to be there for 3 nights, and then Jake will be coming next week for us, as I got to head to Texas to a micro race. So we'll do the full swing at Knoxville next year when we have our new shock trailer done, and we're kind of better suited for that. But with buying the business back and getting moved and everything, it's been a lot this summer. So looking forward to getting that shock trailer and getting back out to a ton of races next year. Cam, are you referring to the bent left front arm to like clear the wheel? And if you are, we've tested 2 different kinds of that, and there's one that is machined out of full billet. It's a big chunk of aluminum, and it's really really rigid, almost the same as a straight arm. Ramey, unfortunately, we're not coming to Belleville. We won't be at Belleville. Probably not going to be at Eagle either for the 305 Nationals. Without having a shock trailer, it's difficult for us to get to those races and add a whole lot of value to our customers. But we'll be back in full swing next year. We're supposed to have that new shock trailer in November, so we'll have it at the Shootout Chili Bowl, and then we got a full slate of races to attend next year. Going to get to some places we've never been before and help customers, and also looking at maybe later in the year, next year, building out a sprinter van as well so we can hit multiple events. Patrick, tire pressure does affect spring rate. Your tire is just a big spring, so that's a whole nother topic, spring rate of tires, but a lot of it has to do with the construction of the tire, how the sidewall is built, how the tire is belted. But yes, the tire pressure greatly affects spring rate. Bagger, who may or may not be tuned in, worked with us for a couple years. He's a mechanical engineering student at IUPUI, and one of his engineering projects, he actually built a spring rate machine, I believe with the help of Danny Drynan, built a tire rating, spring rating machine. Kind of a cool little thing. But yeah, tire pressure greatly affects that. Hello from the Northwest Focus Midgets. I actually, who was in here? Wayne Van Raden, I believe, stopped in and visited with us last week. He was out here checking out Sprint Week. A non-wing customer of ours, Carla, and he was complimenting what a fantastic job you guys are doing with that Northwest Focus Midget series. So good job with that. Keep up the good work. We need more midgets in the Northwest. Such a cool part of the country, and they actually have a really cool dirt track scene up there with Skagit and Deming and a lot of cool tracks. So Tim, arm life. You know, I think, let me just get the rest of your question here. You know, I think if you're running an arm like this, it's going to deflect to a certain point, and then probably stop. So we've never really swapped arms out with bars. I feel like once it kind of deflects a certain amount, it's probably going to keep deflecting that amount. But the newer arms, this is a little bit of a poor example, but it is a good exaggeration. These are the arms everybody ran 10 years ago. All of the new arms aren't pocketed out quite this much, and they're much more rigid. So I don't think, I would put a new set of arms on your car during the off season when you were, freshening your car up. But I don't think they're necessary to change every 20 races or so with your bars. So. What other question did I miss? Marcus is right, Ramey. You don't need any help. You've won 15 races this year. If I showed up at Belleville, I'd probably just slow you down. Any other questions from people tuned in regarding torsion bars or anything else with your race car? Any suggestions on what the next topic would like to be? While we're on this, if one of you is tuned in who sent me a list of topics you'd like to see, please forward me that email again. I was trying to read it on my phone, and I don't know if I deleted it or it disappeared, but I went back through my junk mail and I can't seem to locate it. But there was a bunch of good information. I was about halfway through it and accidentally deleted it, I think. So if that was you and you didn't get a reply from me last Wednesday or Thursday, send me that email again, because I want to read it and cover some of the stuff you were interested in. But anybody else that's tuned in, what would you like to learn about next week on Monday Morning Quarterback? I'll be fresh back from Knoxville, leaving after the Capitani. Should be getting back to Brownsburg about the time the sun comes up. My wife loves it when I do that. I just pretend I'm a big rigger, chew some sunflower seeds, drive all night, listen to a good podcast. So good podcast, my favorite racing podcast right now, Dinner with Racers. I'm hooked on that, but I've listened to a ton of them here lately. Rip the Fence with Dylan Welch is awesome. Open Red is always a favorite one. And Door Bumper Clear, listening to the NASCAR spotters. So if you've never listened to any of those, Dinner with Racers, Rip the Fence, Door Bumper Clear, Open Red, those are all great podcasts for when you're trucking through the night to the next race. Will Bass, what's the best way to determine what rear bars to run in a micro sprint? Honestly, I would lean on your manufacturer of your car. And the reason I say that is every micro manufacturer has a slightly different length arm, and they like to change the length of their arms every few years when they're updating their chassis. So we've ran into this before where a customer says, yeah, my buddy's got a Factor 1 and he runs 700 rear bars. And if I run 700 rear bars on my car, it bottoms out and we weigh the same. Well, come to find out, he had an inch longer arms on his car, so his effective spring rate was way less than his buddy. Factor 1's been building micros for, 25 years probably. And over the course of time, they've had different length arms on their cars as they were trying to achieve different things. So if you're running a D1 or something like that we work with those guys a lot, we could probably point you in the right direction as far as bars. We just want to know what the driver weighs. Are you running wing, non-wing, and the size track? But the best thing to do is to lean on the manufacturer. They're the ones that design the car. They know what length arms are on it, what their good baseline is, and then we can certainly help you with tuning from there based on the feedback you give us. Hope that answers your question. Anybody else tuned in? Got any questions tonight? Will, Factor 1. Call Jimbo, one of the best guys we've worked with in the industry. Super knowledgeable about his cars, and he'll definitely be able to point you in a good direction as far as a starting point. Mark, so most dirt track guys in our field, midgets, sprint cars, they don't weigh their cars. I know dirt late model guys scale out their cars. Micro guys scale out their cars often. So cross weight is basically your left rear to right front percentage of weight. typically more cross weight tightens the car up. It'll give it more left rear drive. As far as a good starting cross weight, again, you'd have to probably refer to the manufacturer on what they recommend. I've got no idea what a good starting cross weight would be on your particular micro brand. Austin, I don't know that there's a maximum amount of turns. Typically, I don't like to go over like 2.5 or 3 turns. I feel like if you're winding the bar up that much, you're probably band-aiding something, and you probably do just need a stiffer spring rate. So I would say probably no more than 3 turns. You either need to reblock the car at that point or go stiffer. Well, I thank all you guys for tuning in. Hope you have a fantastic week. Hope you win some races. And we certainly appreciate you supporting the program and listening every week. New CSI shirts available on the website. Get them while they're hot. And we'll catch up with you guys next week. Take care.